Today's video is sponsored by Sunflex UK. Over 20 years ago, when I was in my first architecture job, the firm I worked for had a client who was a property developer. This guy was in his 50s, had been building houses for years, it was his full-time job. One day, this developer client comes into our office to discuss his next project. My boss showed him the floor plans, and the guy goes silent. He's looking over the drawings, and I can see my boss is getting nervous. The client eventually looks at us and asks, "What are these stripes in the corner?" My boss and I look at each other, confused, not really understanding the question. The client points to the drawing, and then the penny drops. My boss looks at the developer and says, "Those aren't stripes, those are stairs." That episode stayed with me, and I know many architects have experienced it in one form or another. The classic is when a client walks onto a building site, work almost complete, only for them to turn to their architect in shock, saying, "I didn't realize it would look like that," despite the fact it was on the drawings all along. Now, I presume you were watching my video because you don't want this to happen to you. So, are you happy with our design? Yeah, sure, why not? Even experienced clients, like the property developer, can struggle to read architectural drawings. And I'm not talking about complex construction drawings here. I'm talking about the most basic general arrangement drawings. There are lots of great tutorials on YouTube teaching people how to read drawings. I'm not going to try and teach you anything technical in this video. Instead, I'm going to explain two issues that prevent you from really understanding architectural drawings. One is cultural and the other is biological. However, both can be overcome. You just need to be in the right frame of mind. So to understand why most people struggle with drawings, we need to go back to the beginning. Because
in the beginning was the Word.
Now, don't worry, I haven't turned into a religious fanatic, but the Bible has a really good example in it which shows why we struggle with drawings. It's because of words, or more accurately, it's because of writing. You see, just to survive in the modern world, you need to use writing. And if you're really good at it, the modern world can reward you richly. Most of my clients have high-paying, technically challenging jobs which revolve around writing. It doesn't matter if they are lawyers, accountants, doctors, scientists, whatever. When you break it all down, they spend the majority of their working lives reading and writing. They become so good at this, they find it hard to imagine any other way of conveying information. Writing things down has become second nature. It made them successful and wealthy, and the idea that a superior technology might exist to describe the physical world isn't just challenging, it might be too much for them to take.
I'm triggered.
It's a paradox that the people most likely to commission an architect to design a building are also more likely to struggle understanding the drawings. If this sounds like you, whether you are thinking of carrying out work to your own home, or maybe you are responsible for procuring new buildings at your work, then you have to start by accepting the limits of writing as a way to describe three-dimensional objects and space. You won't be able to make progress unless you accept that writing just isn't as efficient as drawing. This limitation has been apparent for a long time. In the Old Testament of the Bible, there's a detailed account of the most famous building in ancient Israel, Solomon's Temple. Its measurements, layout, construction materials, and architectural features are all written down. But despite this, we don't know for sure what Solomon's Temple actually looked like. Gilbert Bagnani, an archaeologist and professor of ancient history, wrote that the description of Solomon's Temple, as given in the first book of Kings and the second book of Chronicles, is extremely detailed and elaborate, but all the innumerable attempts, both ancient and modern, to reconstruct it from the given data at once encounter fantastic difficulties, historic, artistic, practical, and technical. I'm just an architect, not a biblical scholar, and I don't mean to insult anyone's religious beliefs. But all this could have been easily avoided if the Bible had just included a few basic drawings. Now, if you see that observation as a bit cheeky, it just goes to prove my point. Modern, highly literate people see drawing as second-rate, not in the same league as writing. I'm going to show you the limits of writing and explain in simple terms why a drawing can convey so much more information using much less effort. Take a look at this basic floor plan. It's about as simple a space as you could imagine. Now look at this body of text. This is the same simple space described using writing. It's all there, I promise. The first problem with writing is that you cannot read all the words simultaneously. You have to read them one at a time, whereas every element of the drawing is apparent immediately, It's all there simultaneously at a glance. This is a pretty big advantage, even if all you want to do is convey a finished design. But the advantage of drawing over writing gets even bigger if you want to develop that design. Now, you might think none of this applies to you. After all, that's why architects like me exist. I do the drawings for you, right? You don't hire an architect to do drawings. Drawings will happen, but that's not what you're paying for. My job is to look at everything from your budget, the site, your requirements, the planning guidance, and building regulations. I take all of these and use them to produce a first draft of a feasibility study. I'm not trying to impose my ideas on a client, but neither am I just following orders and drawing whatever the client wants. This is a collaboration. The design will change and evolve several times as I go back and forth with the client. We often try out different layouts, testing them to see if they work, and if not, we go back to a previous version of the design. It takes a matter of seconds to overmark this drawing, to move the door to the short wall, put a window in one of the long walls. Conveying design changes in writing is nowhere near as simple. For this, drawing is the superior technology. It's not even close. But it gets even better during construction. Now, let's say the builder wants to query a specific part of the building, to ask for more information, or to change the specification. It happens all the time. They can just circle that area on the drawing, send me an email, and I know exactly what they are referring to. This is quicker and less prone to error than if the contractor tries to describe the exact location in writing. By now, you might be thinking,
Okay, so writing isn't all it's cracked up to be, but I still struggle reading drawings.
don't worry, I've got you covered. I'm not going to give you a long list of technical terms or detailed explanations. The most important thing to do when reading drawings is to go somewhere quiet. One of the most popular books on the subject is called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards. Its big idea is that our brains are divided into two hemispheres and that each side specializes in different skills. The left side is verbal and analytic, and the right side is visual and perceptual. And the connection between the two sides of our brains can easily become overloaded if we try to use both sides simultaneously. The classic scenario is trying to speak while drawing. It just doesn't work. Even listening to someone else speaking stops our brain from being able to draw. Betty Edwards' advice also works for anyone trying to read a drawing. You stand no chance if there are distractions. Turn off the TV and your phone. Go somewhere quiet, ideally go there alone so you don't have to converse with anyone. Calm your mind and take your time. Don't try to translate what you are looking at into words. If you see something you don't understand, just circle it and move on. You can ask your architect to explain this later, so don't let it distract you. If you try to read or listen to people speaking while doing this, the part of your brain that deals with visual information will shut down to allow the verbal part to work. To read drawings properly, you have to start, literally, in the right frame of mind. The developer client I mentioned at the start was in the wrong place to read drawings. He was surrounded by people who were talking, trying to explain the drawings to him in real time. I learned from this and never give clients new drawings in a face-to-face meeting. I prefer to send them drawings long before we have to meet up to discuss them. Drawings also matter to the sponsor of today's video. Sunflex UK design and manufacture high-quality aluminium doors and windows. I made this video showing how their products really helped enhance this project of mine. One of the big advantages of working with Sunflex UK and their network of approved installers is that those installers produce all the detailed drawings of the doors and windows for your project. This takes the guesswork out of the process, so you always know what you're getting before the windows are installed. Check out the full video on Sunflex. I've put a link up here and in the description below. Today's video covered two of the most important things you need to know to read a drawing correctly. If you enjoyed my explanation, please hit the like button. It really helps. There are lots of practical and technical considerations when trying to read a drawing that I didn't mention, and I will cover these in a future video. My name is Neil, and I am a real-life architect in the UK. I make videos about the reality of altering and extending private homes, as well as discussing big ideas in architecture and construction. If you want to see more, please subscribe to the channel.